As the first light of morning slipped through the window, Mina woke up with a bright smile, ready to welcome a brand new day. She eagerly flipped through the pages of her purple spellbook, eyes wide with wonder at every spell she discovered. In an instant, the book lit up with a brilliant glow, and Mina could only stare, her breath caught in awe. She reached out to turn the page, but the book refused to move, as if it were holding its breath. She leaned in close and whispered softly to the book, "Please, dear book, let me turn the page." As the page finally turned, her eyes lit up. "Ooh, this spell makes light?" she murmured in delight. "Well then, let's give it a try." The moment her spell left her lips, brilliant light and swirling rainbow-colored smoke erupted from the book in a magical display. But instead of the dazzling light she was hoping for, dozens of fireflies came pouring out of the book, swirling all around her. Mina let out a long sigh. Sigh. Not again. The village chief came to see Mina at her home, his presence unusual enough to stir a sense of curiosity in the air. The village chief came to Mina, asking for her help to call the rain. The stream was drying unusually fast. The vegetable gardens were already beginning to dry out, their leaves wilting under the relentless sun. The livestock farms were beginning to struggle too, as water grew scarcer by the day. With a determined look in her eyes, Mina clenched her fists and promised the village chief she would find a way to help. After the village chief left, Mina stayed at the table, her eyes fixed on nothing as quiet thoughts stirred behind them. She decided to consult Aunt Rosalind first. Mina hoped that her wisdom would help with her magic, so she headed towards Aunt Rosalind's house. Mina went to visit Aunt Rosalind at her cottage, hoping the wise aunt could help with her magic. Aunt Rosaline leaned in gently and whispered to Mina, "Beyond the village, nestled behind the hills, lies a forest called Eldergroom. It's been there long before any of us were born." Eldergroom Forest was dense and overgrown, its trees tangled like ancient guardians of a forgotten world. Whispers among the villagers spoke of strange things. Some said the forest was alive, watching. At the heart of the forest, hidden beneath layers of mist and shadow, stood a towering spire. It rose above the treetops like a silent, sentinel ancient, forgotten and waiting. It was said that within the tower lay hidden treasures and a magic older than memory itself, sealed, silent, and untouched by time. Aunt Rosaline had once leaned in close and said, "They say there's a rain-calling spell hidden somewhere in that old tower. I don't know if it's true, dear. The forest remembers things we've long..." With a confident smile and a fire in her eyes, Mina turned to Aunt Rosaline. "If the spell is really there, I'll find it," she said. "I'll bring the rain to Elderbell. You'll see." Before Mina could set off, Aunt Rosaline gave her a solemn warning. The forest, she said, was dense and shadow-filled with unseen dangers and paths that could lead the unwary astray. At that moment, Toby and Ninath Village's mischievous pair were secretly eavesdropping from a distance. Toby and Nina hid quietly behind the bushes, secretly following the little witch Mina through the forest. The bush where Toby and Nina hid shook violently as the two children squirmed and jostled for space in their cramped hiding spot. Mina raised her wand and pointed it at the rustling bush, eyes narrowed and ready to cast a spell at whatever was hiding inside. Suddenly, Toby and Nina burst out from the shaking bush, flailing their arms. "It's just us!" they shouted, faces full of panic and mischief. Mina scolded Toby. Her voice sharp, she knew how dangerous this forest was. Toby just gave a sheepish smile, too embarrassed to reply. The children froze as a distant roar rumbled through the trees. Eyes wide with fear, they turned toward the sound, their faces tense and alarmed. A creature with shaggy green fur, glowing eyes, and twisted antler-like horns was slowly making its way toward them, its heavy steps crunching the forest floor. The three children crouched silently in the bush, barely breathing, as they waited for the creature to pass. Every rustle of leaves made them flinch, but they stayed hidden, hoping it wouldn't notice. Mina sighed in exasperation, her shoulders drooping as she crossed her arms. Looking at the darkening forest, she realized it was no longer safe to send them home. Mina and the children continued on until they reached an old rope bridge stretched across a deep, misty ravine. The bridge looked old and worn, with frayed ropes and weathered planks. In the middle, a large gaping hole made it impossible to cross safely. Mina cast a spell, hoping to repair the bridge, but it didn't seem to work as she had intended. But instead of fixing the bridge, a giant rubber duck appeared with a loud squeak. Mina, Toby, and Nina stood there, mouths agape in shock. Toby and Nina burst into laughter, their voices echoing through the forest. Mina stood there with a shy, embarrassed smile, scratching the back of her head. But then, the rubber duck let out a loud squeak and bounced forward, landing perfectly over the hole in the middle of the bridge. Mina stared in astonishment, completely taken aback by what had just happened. Mina turned to Toby with an air of confidence. "I totally meant to do that," she said, lifting her chin proudly, as if everything had gone exactly according to plan. Toby and Nina glanced at each other and shared a quiet, amused smile. Then, without a word, the three of them continued on their journey. The three of them kept moving forward, and the forest around them grew darker with every step. Nina wandered a little ahead and spotted a cluster of mushrooms glowing softly in the dark. Their gentle light shimmered like tiny lanterns, casting a magical glow on the forest floor. After a long journey, the three of them finally caught sight of the tower's peak rising above the treetops in the distance. At last, the little witch, Mina, and the two children arrived at the ancient Tower of Magic, its weathered stones glowing faintly under the moonlight. Just as Mina touched the door, it began to glow softly beneath her fingers, pulsing with light, almost as if it had been waiting for her all along. Inside the ancient tower, at the very center of the room, lay an old spellbook resting on a stone pedestal, its worn leather cover whispering of forgotten magic and time long past. Mina didn't hesitate. With wide-eyed excitement, she stepped forward and opened the spellbook, her face lighting up with pure delight as she turned the ancient pages. Suddenly, the book glowed with a soft blue light, and a tiny spirit burst forth. Mina jumped back in shock, eyes wide. The spirit of a little sprite spoke to Mina, its voice soft and resonant. Only those with pure hearts can use the magic within the book. Mina clenched her fist with determination and looked at the little sprite. She didn't know if her heart was pure, all she knew was that she wanted to help the village. The blue sprite raised its tiny hands, and a glowing magic circle began to form on the floor. A test was about to begin. The blue sprite beckoned Mina into the magic circle. The moment she stepped inside, flames erupted around her, roaring to life as if ready to consume her. Soon, the orange flames shifted to a cool blue. Mina looked around in confusion. The heat was gone, and she no longer felt afraid. The little sprite floated closer and spoke to Mina. She had passed the test. At first, the circle sensed her foolishness, but then, it saw the truth. Her heart was truly pure. The little sprite rose into the air, its glow intensifying. It looked down at Mina and spoke, "I shall grant you the power of this book. Use it to help others." Mina pulled out her purple-bound spellbook. Slowly, it began to glow, the light growing brighter with each passing second. Mina returned to the village and hurried to find Aunt Rosaline. With a bright spark in her eyes, she told her, "I found the magic to call the rain." Then, Mina went to see the village chief to share the good news. She was ready. It was time to bring life and moisture back to the village once more. Mina and the village chief walked together to the village's dried-up stream. The cracked earth and withered plants stood as quiet reminders of the drought. Mina straightened her back, lifting her chin with quiet confidence. She believed she would fix this. Mina pulled out her purple-bound spellbook and raised her wand high into the sky. She took a deep breath, ready to cast the spell. But instead of rain, bubbles floated down from the sky. Mina blinked, trying to hide her surprise. This wasn't exactly what she had planned. Mina and the village chief stood frozen, mouths agape, as they watched bubbles drift down from the sky instead of rain. But then, the bubbles began to pop and leave. Instead of vanishing, they turned into tiny clouds, floating upward as if the sky were being blown from a soap wand. The tiny clouds rose and joined above, forming a dark rain cloud until rain finally fell. Toby stood still as the rain began to fall. His eyes sparkled, then brimmed with tears. He smiled through them too, happy to hold it in. Mina couldn't stay still. As the rain poured down, she laughed and twirled, jumping in every puddle she could find, pure joy in every step. Aunt Rosaline sat quietly by the window, hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea. As the rain fell gently outside, she smiled content, peaceful, and quietly joyful. The village head stood quietly, watching the falling rain with a quiet smile. To him, rain was not just rain, but hope that had finally returned. The townspeople rejoiced as the rain poured down, bringing hope back to their hearts. The once dry land now soaked in the water, and a sense of renewal filled the air. Village Chief thanked Mina. "Your magic may be strange, but it really saved our village." His tone was filled with gratitude and amusement, acknowledging her clumsy but sincere efforts. Mina smiled with joy, proud that she had finally been able to help the village. Her heart felt light, and for the first time, her magic had brought true happiness to others.